Welcome to InFocus with Eden Lane.
Later, we'll visit playwright Ken Whitesman for the world premiere of his latest work, The Catch, at the Denver Center Theater Company. But we begin tonight at the Aurora Fox with Mandy Moore, Emmy-nominated choreographer and director for their latest production, The Wedding Singer. Well, I'm really excited we got to come back and meet with you just 1 week till opening for The Wedding Singer here at the Aurora Fox. So tell me, Mandy, how does it feel to be back in Colorado working with your sister for the first time professionally?
Well, I think being back in Colorado is unexplainable to me, for me, really, because I've always felt like I never left. I guess that's really weird to say, but you know, I've been all over the world, traveled the world teaching, and I live in LA permanently, but I've always just felt like my heart was here in Colorado. So to be back, I just feel like I'm home, you know? And then, of course, to be with my sister is awesome. You know, we haven't spent this much time together since high school, right? So that was many years ago.
And hopefully you're getting along a little better than sisters might in high school.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, I think in high school, as any sisters are, you know, you're just like, she's forever stealing my clothes and driving me crazy as I was to her, you know. But it's been awesome being with her.
And
really.
Your parents are starring in On Golden Pond while you're here.
Yeah, and we actually just went and saw the show last week, and my dad, it was my dad's birthday, so it was a special day anyways because it was my dad, but then to see them both on stage, because my mom doesn't always get to be on stage. She's usually the one directing. So for her to be on stage, I know it was a really special moment for her as well. So.
Some of our viewers might not realize you're the Mandy Moore they think you are. Not the singer, but the Emmy-nominated choreographer from So You Think You Can Dance.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about how you even started in theater, obviously with your parents, but specifically dancing.
Oh, it's good. I mean, my mom says I was just a freak as a little kid. I was dancing around the room all the time. Anytime Sesame Street came on, she couldn't get me away from the television. I was dancing to every single song that they sang. And I think she just realized, she's like, I think I have a dancer here. You know, I have someone who loves music and enjoys moving her body. So she put me in the local dance studio in Summit County.
Do you remember the name of the studio you started?
Yes, Summit School of Dance. And my, funny enough, nice little trivia, my first dance teacher was Kim Del Grosso, who is the mother of Ashley Del Grosso and the Del Grosso sisters from Dancing with the Stars. So
ballroom royalty.
Yes, they are. They are like ballroom people, and you know, we're still really dear friends. And every time I go to her studio, you know, she's showing me all this ballroom stuff, and I'm like, this world is nuts. Like, it's really different than, you know, commercial dance or, you know, ballet. It's a very different world.
So what's your vernacular?
I'm more commercial work. I'm trained in everything. I mean, I've taken tons of ballet and tap and hip hop and jazz, but mostly I concentrate on the commercial dance, which is the stuff you see in movies and on television and in music videos.
So that must be why you went to Los Angeles.
Yeah, you know, when I graduated high school, I knew that I wanted to be a professional dancer. It's all I've ever wanted to do. So, you know, for me it was, okay, am I going to do LA? Am I going to do Chicago or New York? And at the time, my education and what I knew was that LA was more television, Chicago was more kind of company work with Hubbard Street and Gus Giordano, and New York was very ballet and Broadway. And for some reason, New York seemed so far away. I mean, I've always wanted to be in theater and do Broadway, but first it just seemed like it was a whole nother country to me, you know? So LA seemed a little bit more chill, and I've always loved television, so I was out in LA. I went straight out to LA, 18. I mean, it's so lame to think, right? Because it's like I literally went out there with $500. It's like a movie thing, you know? It's like, I have $500, I'm really gonna make it big in my red Jeep Wrangler, you know? And I think the $500 was gone within like a week.
That wouldn't buy very many class cards in LA.
No. Well, and that's the thing too, is that luckily when I graduated from high school, I had applied for some scholarships, and I think I got some local scholarships, and they paid for probably the first 3 months of my dancing, because I danced all day, every day when I got out there. I would go to the studio, I'd go to Edge Performing Arts Center in Hollywood, and I would start class at 10 a.m. and I would take until 10 p.m. with barely a dinner break. I mean, I was a freak. I'm still a freak. If I have a moment, I go and take class all the time. But
you're still very, very young for a choreographer and director. So do you still want to perform, or have you decided now that choreography is completely your calling?
Oh, that's a good question, Eden. I think I'll always love being on stage. I think some people are just true performers. They love being on stage and like that's where that's their place. For me, I've literally equally I've felt at home being a performer, being a teacher, being a choreographer. I'm as happy off camera as I am on camera. So, you know, I don't know if that's ever going to be a full transition for me. You know, hopefully someone's still going to want to hire me to do kickball change, you know, in my later years. I hope, because those are the funnest jobs, you know, when you get to actually do these crazy jobs that no one thinks you're a dancer and then you just bust out dancing, you know. So, you know, I haven't made the full transition, but I do enjoy directing. I love being the choreographer. I like being off camera and calling the shots and creating the picture. I do really like that.
The industry certainly has rewarded you for that work by giving you an Emmy nomination for your really beautiful work on So You Think You Can Dance.
Thank you.
How did that project come to you? How did you get associated with So You Think You Can Dance?
Okay, this is more trivia. This is such a good story. Okay, long story short, I was out in LA for a while, and of course a dancer and in class all the time, and I met a woman by the name of Carrie-Ann Inaba, who is the Carrie-Ann Inaba from Dancing with the Stars. She had actually kind of started making the transition that we were talking about, just into choreography and a little bit more directing, and she needed an assistant for a job that we did for Fox, Who Wants to Marry a Multi-Millionaire, which was basically a pageant for males. That's basically what it, or no, first we did America's Sexiest Bachelor for Fox, and that was basically a Miss America for guys. And that was the first job we worked on, and she was like, I need an assistant for this, can you help me? And from that point on, we probably for a good 6, 7, 8 years, we worked together really closely. I assisted her on every job she did. She was hired to do All American Girl, and Nigel Lithgow was an executive producer for that show. He saw our work, was really impressed by it, and he said, hey, I have the show American Idol. Can I get you to come and choreograph some stuff for American Idol? So then we started doing American Idol on
just some little show that, you know, might get you a little exposure.
Just a little show called American Idol. I remember the first day we went into rehearsal, we were like, what is going on? This is crazy. This show is huge. So anyways, we did American Idol, and that was season 3. And then during that time, Nigel started talking to us about, hey, I want to do this, I want to do a dance show. You know, he's a dancer.
Speaking of, you know, you show up and no one knows you're a dancer, and then you bust out with his history as a hoofer on stage in the UK.
Oh yeah, he's awesome. Nigel is a great dancer, choreographer, director. I love him. You know, and he has this random little idea. He's like, okay, I want to do a dance show, and I kind of want to do it like American Idol, but for dancers. And so we would go into these meetings, and it sounded like really cool, but you know, we've had dance shows before, and who knows if they're going to be successful. You never know if this little thing that we do as dancers is going to be appreciated, right? But leave it to Nigel to create this crazy show called So You Think You Can Dance. So season 1, I helped out with the auditions. I was one of the assistants at the auditions. And then season 2, I was out of town. I wasn't around. And season 3, one of the other producers, Jeff Thacker, called me and said, hey, we need somebody to actually teach the auditions this year. I know you assisted. Would you be happy? Would you like to do it? And I said, of course. And then they were happy with that, and then they asked me to do a duet, and then they were happy with that, and so on and so on. So that's how that all came to be.
Isn't that amazing how showing up to class, learning everything you could get your hands on, and being open to all those opportunities led you to your Emmy nomination?
Yeah. I feel like I actually had that moment, and I did, when I was sitting in the audience, you know, with my dad. I'm in my dress, just did the red carpet, which is a trip, by the way. I'm sitting there, and you know, it's like Tom Hanks is walking by, like Harrison Ford, and like all these people that are presenting, all this like really, these people that you look up to, right? And I had that moment of almost retrograding or kind of backpedaling back to like my first moments in dance or my first moments in LA, and I just thought, it really does. Everything you do just leads you to the next point. And I was like, I don't even care if I win. Like, I know, and everyone else says, it doesn't matter if I win, but for real, like, I felt like I already won. I mean, I was there at this, like, someone recognized all that hard work that I'd been doing for
And
so
as a
many
dancer,
years.
that's not something that most dancers dream of, because it's not something that happens very often.
Correct, correct.
Now, all of that led you to the ability to become sort of like so many other dancers, choreographers, and now a director. And as a director, a dancer is very, especially someone who's still dancing, is very different than some other directors. And this month we have a chance to see your work here at the Aurora Fox for The Wedding Singer.
Right.
Don't think of that as a dance show.
Right.
So how did this project come to you?
Well, I think that Charlie was looking for someone that was going to be able to capture the spirit of the show. And the show is based in the 80s, obviously, and for some reason I'm known as this big 80s choreographer, which is hysterical to me. But I love the 80s.
but not from memory.
No, not really. I mean, I was a kid in the 80s. I was born in '76, so I mean, through the 80s, I was experiencing it definitely. You know, I remember it. I remember the time.
You really do remember some of it?
I do.
Wow.
I remember the first day of MTV. I remember I was sitting there watching when it came on air, and I remember the videos and how vibrant they were. I remember the fashion. I remember.
And that was a big surge for dance at that time.
Yes, I mean, thank goodness for shows like for the movies like Staying Alive, Flashdance, Girls Just Want to Have Fun, Footloose. I mean, these shaped my perception of what dance was. I mean, that's why I moved to LA, is watching those movies. I thought that's what you were going to do when you moved to LA. So all of that being said, you know, I think Charlie was looking for someone that was going to be able to understand that time, but also bring out the spirit of that time. And in our initial talks, he had really talked about how he really wanted this show to be fluid and ever moving, like a rock concert. That was kind of his vision for it. And I think we think a lot along the same lines.
Did you know each other before?
No, my sisters worked here before, and I think I'd met Charlie one time, just kind of in passing. But yeah, I mean, immediately I was like, totally, I'm on the same page as you. I mean, when I read the script, I thought, this is so fun. It's so full of life, and it doesn't feel like one of those pieces where it's very serious. Everyone's gonna black out, the set changes, and then we come up and it's a new scene. You know, to me, it felt like I wanted to just be this close to a rock concert, and I wanted to feel like I was in it. And so he needed a choreographer for that, because that's not something you can just sit in a seat, I think, and tell people where to go. It's not as black and white, you know.
There's not that vocabulary upon which any director could draw. It's not just chassé, ball change, kick, ball change.
Correct.
What is the tone like, and how did you said he wanted a choreographer, how did you get both jobs as the director?
Oh, I think originally when we talked, he's like, do you want to choreograph it too? And I was like, yeah. You know, because as a director, when you get to do both, I mean, directing and choreographing, I feel like is so intertwined. You know, it is on camera. I mean, if you can find like someone like Rob Marshall, who's able to choreograph and direct his films, you can't get any better than that, because it's all in my head. I don't have to explain it to anybody. I can just do it. I understand what I'm asking everybody to do, and I can facilitate it as much, you know. It's not that easy, but yes. Okay, so the movie is a little different than the musical. I find the musical to have a little bit more charm to it.
Not so much of a send-up.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's got, it feels like, it's charming. It's got a little bit more of the heartstrings pulled, you know. The movie's hysterical, and I think the connection between Drew Barrymore and Adam Sandler is very charming, but it kind of ends there in the movie. You know, it's more of a comedy. But I think here you're going to find a lot of different little love stories, and hopefully it'll make you think a little bit more about yourself and your own love for things. So.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, and there's a good deal of music that the audience will know before the show begins.
Some of it. There's some of the numbers are from the movie. Grow Old With You is in the movie, and Somebody Kill Me is in the movie. But some of the other songs are really from the musical. Were written specifically for the musical, but we do have a little thing that we're going to do pre-show and intermission that is going to make people very happy. But I can't tell you, Eden.
Not even a little hint?
Well, let's just say we all really loved MTV in the 80s, and we loved watching music videos. So that's all I'm going to say.
Should the audience be prepared to stand up a little bit?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we have this thing at the end too. We're doing this big mega mix of music, and we want everybody to just get out of their seats and sing. And my first thing I thought is, like, you know, I want everyone to walk out of this theater singing Walking on Sunshine. I want them to just be excited, because it's one of my favorite songs ever. So the goal is to try and create a show that everyone will want to stand up at the end and sing along and walk out of the theater going, God, I love that song, or oh, that was so fun.
Have you seen this show produced before?
No.
No.
And I try not to. Like when I'm involved with something and I'm creating, I don't want any sort of outside influence. I'd really like to just understand what's written and let it come to life in my own mind.
So this very talented cast from Colorado, you, your sister, and the crew and regulars here at the Aurora Fox, it's almost as if you're creating a whole new theater piece.
Yeah, it's awesome. I mean, to these last couple of days in tech, I've just been looking at it going, I mean, of course there's bumps and bruises. You know, you look at things, you're like, why isn't that done? What's going, you don't know your lines. What the heck?
I
That's
can't
not
picture
the
you
spacing.
doing that.
I do a little bit. It's a little bit more internal. But all in all, I really do believe that it's a recipe for success. I think it can happen. I mean, there's always that thing that the performers pull out at the end. There's that thing that the crew comes together. There's, you know, all those visuals end up happening, the things we've created.
And that very important component, the live audience.
Yes.
Because there's something about the air when the audience is witnessing it happen live.
Yeah, you don't get that in television. You don't get that in film. You can look at something and be an observer of something, go like, wow, that was really great. But when you're in theater, live theater, it's like you have to be a part of it. You observe, but you're a part of it. We're all breathing the same air. We're all here.
So tell me your success as a choreographer on television or film, and now on stage. What is the difference in the work for you between choreographing or directing for film or video than for the theater?
There's big differences. I think probably the biggest difference for me was just time. You know, when I'm in LA and I'm on set, you have no time, and whatever time you have was too long of a time you were supposed to have anyways. I mean, it is crazy how fast television moves, specifically television. I did a film a couple years ago, and that was a little bit different. You know, you have a little bit more time to rehearse things, and it's the director's like right by your side, and you're collaborating and figuring all that out. But for theater, it was like, to have 4 weeks to do something, even though I don't feel like it's enough time anyways. I mean, it's never enough time, right? But to have that was really, really nice, to come in day after day and see people coming along in their characters, and to be able to kind of rework numbers and go, I didn't really like the way that worked. Can we look at that again? You know, that's been really nice. And a big difference from LA, because I know as soon as I go back to LA, I'm going to feel like I got slapped in the face. I'm like, well, I'm back. Here we go.
Well, how long do we have to see this production of The Wedding Singer?
Well, we open on the 11th of February, and we close on March 6th. So got about a month to see it. And we're on Friday, Saturday, Sundays. Yeah.
So really, someone really has to take some action if they want to join the party at the Aurora Fox and come and see The Wedding Singer.
Yeah, you don't have 6 months to make it happen. You got to come on down.
Well, I'm really glad that even though you're in your tech week, that you carved out a little time for us to visit with you and find out about this work you're doing here with this great cast at the Aurora Fox. Thanks so much.
Oh, it was really my pleasure. Thank you.
Here's how you can get tickets for The Wedding Singer at the Aurora Fox. Next, one of the special events at the Colorado New Play Summit was the world premiere of The Catch by Ken Whitesman. We had a chance to follow up on our first discussion with him from last year's summit. I began by asking him how he would describe The Catch now.
Well, how I describe the plot is it's about a man in his 30s who's a failed dot-commer. His business has tanked, and he's lost his house, he's lost his wife, and he's in terrible shape. Takes place in 2002. And he hatches a plan to catch a record-breaking home run ball that he is going to be able to crunch the numbers and figure out exactly where to be on the last day of the season to catch this record-breaking ball. It's based on a true story of Barry Bonds' single-season record-breaking home run ball. So he thinks that this can change his life for the better, and he's an incredible optimist. So if you ask me really what the play is about, and I'm talking more thematically, then I say it's about American optimism. The character of Gary is the he's a zealous optimist, and that was interesting territory for me to look into. And baseball's a jumping off point, as you so smartly point out. And optimism is particularly interesting to me because in so many ways it's what makes us such a productive country, makes America so exceptional, is this can-do spirit, and if it doesn't exist, we can invent it, and don't accept failure ever. It's just, success is just around the corner, keep at it, and all those qualities are what makes this country so successful. And then the flip side of it is this optimism, this idea of the, American dream on steroids, if you will, can have an underside. It can lead to going into great debt because you believe that, instant wealth and success is around the corner, and it can lead to the dot-com bubble and the housing bubble and what happened on Wall Street. So that seems to me the flip side of that kind of optimism and sometimes false belief.
You also attack the idea of heroes that we build up in that sort of optimistic culture. Tell me about that.
Yeah, I think the metaphor of steroids and things being pumped up carries all the way through, and we kind of mythologize these sports figures, and we mythologize even business leaders of the past, the way you think about a Gates or a Henry Ford, and we create these stories and these mythologies that are so pumped up in their way, and they become kind of the founding stories and the founding metaphors and the touchstones, as if, those stories are so achievable and just the same story as what happened to those people or to these sports stories is just around the corner, and it becomes these outsized stories with which we're measuring ourselves against.
We can all feel that we're the special person that's going to be touched by fate in America.
Absolutely. And it becomes, again, this kind of zealous, false belief.
So it's almost as if your piece, The Catch, has been touched by the hand of fate as well, because it was your first summit, your first full production, and the buzz that's surrounding this piece already is pretty intense for a new work at the Denver Center Theater Company. How does that feel?
It feels great. I mean, I write it to share it with an audience, and it feels quite nice that it's such an accessible piece. People are finding so many ways into it and so many ways that they're touched by it. And for some that has to do with baseball, and for some it has to do with the father-son relationship or the mother-son relationship, and
or marriage.
Or marriage, or talking about the elements of history that are in the play. And so it seems that people are approaching it from so many different angles, and because there's humor, that also makes it very accessible. So I feel quite proud of the fact that it's reaching so many people, and so many people feel invited in to the play. I feel like that's not always the case in theater, and I do feel quite proud of that with this play.
It's interesting that you mentioned the humor, because from when I saw it at the reading, I would almost describe it as a real comedy because there was so much humor in it. But in the theater, comedy allows you to sort of attack serious subjects and serious relationships.
Absolutely.
And we don't often see that anymore. We have a history of American theater that uses humor in that way, but it seemed to have fallen out of favor for some reason. And yet here you are working in that venue.
And it's such a good tool. I mean, it's very sneaky. It is disarming people, and certainly it's for entertainment, allow people to have a good time, but it's certainly easier then to sneak in the drama or pull the rug out, and the contrast between what's funny then and then the emotional parts becomes that much greater, and I think they make each other more effective when they're working in tandem.
So it's interesting that not only are you premiering this production in time for the summit, but it's also going to be surrounding Valentine's Day. I think that your play is a perfect date night. How would you describe it?
Wow, I think it's an interesting date night. It certainly will lead to a conversation. I mean, I think it would be fun in that way because it'll be funny and enjoyable, and it's an emotional experience.
You can talk afterwards.
As well. And you can talk afterwards. There's plenty of stuff to look back on and to tease out and to discuss, and it doesn't end coming down on one particular viewpoint or another. So certainly, as it ends, in talking to people as they come out of the theater, some people have a very particular opinion, some people have the opposite opinion, and that's always quite wonderful. When it leads to discussion afterwards, it's very satisfying.
Was it hard for you to resist the temptation to have it carry weight on one side or the other as part of the resolution?
No, I find myself in rehearsal when people ask me, well, is it this or is it that? And my answer is always yes. It's both. I'm always looking for ways to have my cake and eat it too. So that in some ways, the most effective moments are moments that can carry both sides of the equation within it. And so that's the goal. So it wasn't hard to resist the temptation, but it's hard to craft it that way, for sure.
You also are an academic. You teach. Tell me about your philosophy of playwriting, because is that the subject that you teach?
Yeah, I teach playwriting.
So you say it's hard to craft it that way. Are you finding it easier to do your own work because you have that exercise of helping others learn that craft?
It's amazing to be in the classroom. I mean, first of all, the energy that I get from the graduate, undergraduate students, I mean, the phase that they're in their life and the sort of unbridled creativity that they have is quite nourishing and quite fun. And it's nice to help them craft that and put that into something that they can display and feel proud of. But then also to have to explain in simple terms the elements of the craft, and to keep going back to the fundamentals of what it is to craft a moment and conflict and dialogue and all of that, to have to explain that in the simplest of terms to beginning writers is incredibly helpful, to go back to that again and again.
Well, that explains why you've been so successful in this script. I'm anxious to see it in the full production, and I know that as a playwright you're used to dealing with critics coming to see your work and offering their thoughts about the work that you've presented. And sports figures are used to Monday morning quarterbacking, as it were.
Absolutely.
So you might be subject to sort of both of that types of feedback coming at you.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I mean, there are some sports figures who are coming to the play, and we have an announcer doing the opening of the play, and the theater critic for the Denver Post used to be a sports writer, so he's got both of those enmeshed in one. So it's quite fun to think about the two worlds colliding, and it's quite fun to think about what the Monday morning talk is on both sides.
Well, I know there'll be lots of talk on all sorts of fronts from the catch. And if you want to join the conversation, just visit thedenvercenter.org to make sure you get your tickets before it's gone.
That's all for this edition. Remember to join us on Facebook and Twitter. With all that Colorado has to offer, we're here to help you keep it in focus. Thanks for watching. Good night.
Snugglebug.